Welcome to the 16th episode of the Grand Cosmic Story. What sparked the Cambrian Explosion? Is it possible to explain the sudden appearances of life in all periods of our Earth's history through Darwinian evolution?
Are you curious about the world around you? Do you wonder what else is out there beyond our world? Dr. Latha Christie, a scientist and an author, will take you on a journey through the universe. Join her in exploring the universe through her web series, The Grand Cosmic Story. Stay tuned to find out what today's episode is all about.
As we proceed into the 21st century, the science of paleontology and geology have achieved remarkable prominence and popularity, providing a detailed perspective on biological and geological processes. Does all this knowledge that we have gained point to Darwinian evolution? The answer is no. The knowledge gained proves that there are no gradual changes as Darwin proposed, but instead sudden jumps. Starting from the origin of life, we can find sudden appearances in all periods of Earth's history, in all geographical regions and categories. From plants and protists, from invertebrates to vertebrate animals, there is a clear pattern that cries out for a modified theory. Life on Earth can be classified into one of 6 kingdoms of life. These kingdoms are Archaebacteria, Eubacteria, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. Archaebacteria are single-cell prokaryotes that live in some very inhospitable places like hot springs and hydrothermal vents. Eubacteria are considered to be true bacteria. Fungi include both unicellular yeast and molds and multicellular organisms that decompose organic matter and acquire nutrients through absorption. All microscopic organisms that do not belong to bacteria, plants, or fungi are protists such as slime molds and algae. Animals are divided into vertebrates like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals that have a vertebral column or backbones, and invertebrates that do not have backbones. The invertebrates include insects, worms, arthropods, sponges, mollusks, octopuses, and so on. To study when and at what period of the 4.6 billion years of Earth's history these life forms appeared, geologists have organized Earth's history into eras or periods. The oldest or first era is called the Precambrian era or obscure life era, which refers to Earth's entire history between 4.6 billion years to 542 million years ago, when the first rocks containing recognizable fossils were found. The succeeding eras are the Paleozoic era, the Mesozoic era, and the Cenozoic era. The Paleozoic era consists of the Permian, Pennsylvanian, Mississippian, Devonian, Silurian, Ordovician, and Cambrian periods, whereas the Mesozoic era consists of the Cretaceous, Jurassic, and Triassic periods, and the Cenozoic era consists of Quaternary and Tertiary periods. When paleontologists study the various periods of Earth's history and the appearances of various life forms, they are astonished to find the sudden jumps in the appearances of animal body plants. Let me give you a few examples of sudden appearances. The first sudden appearance of complex multicellular organisms in the rock strata called the Cambrian Explosion happened about 575 million years ago in the Ediacaran period. The organisms were shellless. They were weird creatures like sponges, cnidarians, and the peculiar Ediacaran biota which appeared suddenly without any precursors in the fossil record. Then came the famous Cambrian Explosion, where an extraordinary appearance of many new animal bodies happened suddenly about 541 million years back and lasted for a brief period of 13 to 25 million years. It was really biology's big bang when things went from being moving very slowly on the seafloor to all the different types of ecology we find today. This marked a major episode of morphogenesis with no clear morphological antecedents nor transitional intermediate forms connecting Cambrian animals with simpler Precambrian forms. The Cambrian Explosion represents a remarkable jump in the specified complex information as a number of new cell types emerged. The cause of these sudden bursts of life remains a mystery, and none of the various hypotheses put forward, like the steep rise in oxygen levels, formation of Earth's ozone layer, or evolution of biological innovations and mechanisms, is able to explain this sudden appearance of life forms. After this, between 485 and 444 million years ago, we find a great Ordovician biodiversification event when there was an increase or an explosion in marine biodiversity in a short time span of 25 million years. The next was the Devonian Nectan Revolution, also called the Age of Fishes, which occurred between 419 and 359 million years ago, signifying the sudden change in the population of creatures living in the sea from floaters to swimming animals. During the same time, there was also an explosion of plant life, a period of rapid plant and fungal diversification where the first seed-forming plants appeared, known as the Devonian plant explosion. Next, we can find the Carboniferous insect explosion during the late Carboniferous and earlier Permian periods around 300 million years ago. Fossils of giant dragonflies, locusts, and huge cockroaches with complex eyes and complex flight systems were common during this period. It's not just primitive winged insects like dragonflies or mayflies, but even very sophisticated ones like beetles or the relatives of wasps and insects who undergo complete metamorphosis. In this short time span, Darwinian evolution with its gradual and slower process cannot explain the metamorphosis from larva or caterpillar stage to a resting or pupa stage and then to the totally different looking body of the adult organisms. Then approximately 252 million years ago, we arrive at the Triassic explosions, which include the origin of marine reptiles and dinosaurs. We can find suddenly in just a 10 million year window of time the appearance of the first representative of all major lineages of terrestrial vertebrates, the oldest representatives of mammals, the oldest representatives of iguana, the oldest representatives of the crocodile lineage, the oldest representative of the turtle lineage, and the dinosaurs. In that short window of time, in just a 2 million year window of time, there was also a sudden increase of different body plans of marine reptiles like Ichthyosaurus and the first flying reptiles like pterosaurs and gliding reptiles. Then around 125 million years ago, we enter the Cenozoic era, which was also called the age of flowering plants, when we can find the sudden springing forth of angiosperm with their flowers. Regarding the origin of flowering plants, Darwin coined the phrase the abominable mystery. In a letter to his closest friend and botanist, Dr. Joseph Hooker, Darwin writes, "The rapid development, as far as we can judge, of all the higher plants within recent geological times is an abominable mystery." Darwin's abominable mystery still remains not only unsolved, but has got a lot deeper. Then we can find the age of insects, marking the sudden origin of butterflies and then the big bang of modern birds. The modern birds emerged almost in an explosive manner after the KT mass extinction event that wiped out the dinosaurs around 66 million years ago. We find the same pattern in mammals too. Last but not least, we have the sudden origin of human culture in the Upper Paleolithic period around 40,000 years ago, which was characterized by a rapid diversification of human artifacts, including a variety of specialized tools and weapons, body ornaments and pottery, the first known needles, and the emergence of more complicated instruments like barbed harpoons and spear throwers. It appears almost all the life forms of various kingdoms appeared suddenly in the fossil record. Since the morphological changes from one kingdom to another are huge, scientists are on the lookout for the mechanisms that could bring forth such morphological innovations during the history of life. Many scientists and mathematicians have questioned the mechanism of neo-Darwinism that can produce large-scale innovations in form and complexity. They have challenged the efficacy of selection and mutation as a mechanism for generating morphological novelty and large-scale morphological changes. Genetics might be adequate for explaining microevolution, but microevolutionary changes in gene frequency will not be able to turn a reptile into a mammal or convert a fish into an amphibian. Microevolution looks at adaptations that concern the survival of the fittest, not the arrival of the fittest. There are two main reasons. Number one, the problem of harmful mutation in genes. Recent studies in developmental biology have revealed that significant morphological change in organisms requires attention to timing. Mutations in genes that are expressed late in the development of an organism will not affect the body plan. Though mutations expressed early in the development of organisms have a realistic change of producing significant morphological changes, such mutations have deleterious effects. This is a great Darwinian paradox. Number two, the problem of the origin of information. Building a new animal from a single-celled organism requires a vast amount of new genetic information. Take the examples of sponges that appeared in the late Precambrian and the complex animals like arthropods that appeared in the Cambrian period. Sponges may have required 5 cell types, whereas arthropods would have required 50 or more cell types. New cell types require many new and specialized novel proteins to perform their specialized functions. New proteins, in turn, require new genetic information. Thus, increasing the number of cell types implies a considerable increase in specified genetic information. Molecular biologists have recently estimated that a minimally complex single-celled organism would require between 318 and 562 kilobase pairs of DNA to produce the proteins necessary to maintain life. And to build the proteins necessary to sustain a complex arthropod such as trilobite, we would require orders of magnitudes more coding instructions. Finally, the sensitivity of proteins to functional loss, the need for long proteins to build new cell types and animals, and the need for whole new systems of proteins all suggest the immense improbability and implausibility of the origin of genetic information through random variations. Neo-Darwinism, through the blind process of mutation and natural selection, is not sufficient to solve the problem of the origin of the information that is necessary to generate morphological novelty and the origin of new body plans within the short time available. Also, Neo-Darwinism predicts slow macroevolution which ought to leave transitional forms in the fossil record, but instead the fossil record illustrates punctuated equilibrium, that is, life goes on stably for long periods of time, interrupted by periodic bursts of great activity for no natural reasons, followed by a return to stability. Biologists have yet to find a valid example of a gradual transition from one genus to another. Hence, paleontologist Stephen Jay Gould confesses, the extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persists as the trade secret of paleontology. The evolutionary trees that adorn our textbooks have data only at the tips and nodes of their branches. The rest is inference, however reasonable, not the evidence of fossils. That is why Gould and Eldridge propose a theory of evolution by punctuated equilibrium to account for the sudden appearance in the fossil record. As per his theory, a mechanism known as species selection could have been the reason for the large morphological jumps evident in the fossil record. That is, natural selection functions more as a mechanism for selecting the fittest species rather than the most fit individual among a species. However, it has been widely criticized for failing to provide a mechanism sufficient to produce the novel form of higher taxonomic groups. During explosive events such as the Cambrian Explosion, there is a sudden increase of complex specified information for producing the higher taxa and their morphological novelty, and no naturalistic mechanism can give a satisfactory explanation. This fact suggests a grand purposive design. The Bible clearly gives an account of the origin of different types of life forms through the supernatural power of God in its very first chapter. The fossil data proves the sequence of the life forms given in the very first chapter of the Bible.
And God said, "Let the water teem with the living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems and that moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good.
Bye for now. See you again in the next episode. Let us find out how dinosaurs become birds and how whales evolved from the land to the sea.